As South Africa celebrates August as Women's Month, we are looking at female academics and what they have achieved and what they would love to see change in the academic space. Our guest today is Doctor Disa Mogashana from University of Cape Town, who holds a BSc in Chemical Engineering, a Master's in Engineering Education and a Ph.D. in Engineering Education, all from the UCT. Dr. Mogashana, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us and a warm welcome.
Thank you. Good evening to you and good evening to all the viewers at home.
It is a big question, obviously. What would you love to see change, especially when it comes to women empowerment in all spheres of society, be it business, be it corporate, be it academia?
I think specifically, Simpiwe, focus on academia. I think I would like to see change more in developing the capacity. You may know that in higher education, being a researcher, holding a PhD is a very important thing. And we find that more and more women need to be capacitated to develop that skill. So that is the biggest thing in academia for women, if I may put it that way.
Yeah, you've made a valid point there. And in terms of the capacitation of women, so what role should the government play in terms of the capacitation of women, and to what extent should the government be involved?
I think, when it comes to what government can do, I think government is already having programs in place to fund women, to relieve some from their work so that they can take some study leave and to pursue their studies. The bottom line is, when you are in academia, you've got to have a PhD as a starting point. As a woman in academia, when you do not have a PhD, it's like you are voiceless. So being a black woman is even worse because it's like you don't even exist.
Yeah.
So I think the government, putting some funding in place to allow more women to develop so that we can actually develop a voice and we occupy the spaces that we need to be occupying in higher education.
Yeah, and of particular interest is your own life story. Take us through about your journey as an academic. How would you describe your journey? And being a black woman here in South Africa in particular, how has that journey been? Has there been any obstacles along the way?
Just to start with, Simpiwe, I do say that 2021 marks 20 years of me in this space. My students don't believe me when I say it's been 20 years. It started, with just like many children coming from township school with, showing up at university in 2001, not really knowing what I was getting myself into. And coming into studying engineering, which I also didn't know what it was, not informed. So it's been 20 years. I do tell my students that, I was so uninformed that how I even chose a career. I just watched TV one time. I bumped into a black woman who had a title of a chemical engineer. I don't know who she is. And that's how I was like, that's what I'm going to study. So that's how I got into it, quite random. I just knew that education was important to me. I knew that my parents couldn't afford much, so I had to study something that I could get a bursary for. And it was during that journey of studying chemical engineering that I found myself, that I knew that, for me to pursue my purpose, which is to help students, I needed to pursue an academic journey. It's been an interesting journey. It's been fascinating. It's been painful. It's been challenging, but it's been fulfilling.
And it's very important that you actually found yourself, and that is what is needed for so many women here in South Africa. But then, do you think there is enough support in terms of allowing women, in terms of, giving oxygen to women to find themselves, to change the narrative and to change the status quo with regards to the violation of women's rights?
I think, Simpiwe, change takes time. I must say that there are improvements. There's lots of improvements. If we look at the situation currently that women are experiencing, especially in higher education, it's different to what it was 20 years ago when my journey started. So change takes time. And I think we are seeing more and more of the higher education space transforming. If you take my university, for example, we have, most of the people in the leadership of the university are women. And of course, we know that, UCT is currently led by a black woman. Power to her. So things are changing, things are taking time, but we're getting there slowly. With capacity building, the next 20 years, we will probably have a different higher education system. So we're getting there.
Hopefully we will get there, and much sooner than we actually thought. Now, there's this phenomenon called the Ph.D. or pull head down syndrome, wherein women pull each other down. Why is this the case, though, and why are we allowing it to happen?
I think it's a very tough one, that one. I will specifically talk about Black women in this case. The pull head down syndrome, I think to some extent, I mean, that's my view, my opinion. I think it comes from some form of inferiority complex of us not when we see other women achieving, we don't see ourselves in them. And instead of seeing ourselves in what we are able to achieve, we want to bring them down to our level. It's rather unfortunate that we do that, and we do that a lot as women. We don't really encourage each other up or build each other up. It's like, this one, she thinks she's better. It's rather unfortunate. But in places like academia, I think, we just have to keep supporting each other and building each other up. And the only people who will get this ball rolling is us women standing up together and being reunited. And we are very far from that. We are making progress, but slow, but we will get there. We'll get there.
I suppose just picking up on that particular point you made just now, Ms. Mogashana, you know, the face of poverty, the face of marginalization, the face of victimization, especially on the African setting, is a Black woman. And there's this misconception that for us to change the status quo, and the narrative about this particular status quo is that women should get into political office, so they are much better placed to change the status quo. That shouldn't be the case, though, because every woman out there who has what it takes to change the narrative should be doing it. I mean, even women in academia, even women like yourselves, even women in business, just about any other woman. And I suppose that is one gray area that we need to tackle, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I don't think we are all in a way inclined to be in political spaces to make any change. I think each one of us has it within ourselves in the spaces that we occupy. Purpose-driven. I believe in being purpose-driven. Within the place where you feel your purpose is, you can grow, you can develop, and you can make a huge contribution as a woman. So you don't have to necessarily just be in government spaces. And there's not even enough spaces there. There's just so many other spaces to explore and to be and to find yourself and to contribute to humanity in that space.
And what about the less numbers, or the figures which are less than impressive, the figures of women at decision-making structures here in South Africa, be it in the political space, be it in the boardrooms? Why are we still seeing a less than impressive figure involving women?
So, Simpiwe, the issue of women is a historical issue, the contextual issue. So it's something that has been there for years. For us in our context, as a result of colonialism, patriarchy, women have always occupied the less valuable spaces in society. So it's taking time, and it will take some time. And as a result, we are seeing less than impressive numbers. But I do have hope, and I believe that the spaces are shifting. They are changing. Perhaps not at the pace that you would like to see them, Simpiwe, but they are changing. They are taking time. But so that's how society works. Structures take time, and culture takes time. They take time to change. But I think we're making progress. So the numbers will improve in the next while, I think.
Indeed. Now, Dr. Mogashana, I hate putting you on the spot, but I suppose for purposes of this conversation, I will be putting you on the spot. How ready is South Africa for a female president?
Ooh, yes, you did put me on a spot on that. How ready are we? I think, it's a tough one. Maybe not this next election, perhaps the next one. I think we would like to see women taking stronger deputy and the deputy leadership structures so that they prove them, they show themselves. But I think in the not next year, but perhaps in the next one, we will be ready. So we're getting there. But yes, it's about time. It's about time we get a woman to run the country. You will see things will, all of a sudden, problems will be solved. Just put a woman there.
All right. Dr. Mogashana, before I let you go, what kind of advice would you have for young girls out there watching this interview who see you as a role model and would love to venture into the space that you're in?
Simply, I think to the younger girls, I mean, some will actually just decide that they want to do that from just watching this interview. The same way as I ended up studying chemical engineering because I saw some woman who had a chemical engineering title. To them, I just want to say it's hard work. It's hard work. It's deciding that you want to do something with your life. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, dedicating time and hard work, discipline, commitment, and striving for excellence. And in doing that, not even the sky is the limit, simply way. So, yeah, I wish them well in that journey as well.
All right, Dr. Mogashana, lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time and continue being an inspiration to so many young women. Thank you,
Simpure. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Indeed. Thank you so much, you too. All right, that was Dr. Disa Mogashana. She is from the University of Cape Town and she holds a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering, a Master's in Engineering Education and a Ph.D. in Engineering Education, all from the University of Cape Town.